Good morning, everyone. Good morning, let's see, or good afternoon. People start joining slowly. Welcome to this webinar on sectors meet the donut. I wait for a few seconds for the people to join us. Good morning or good afternoon. Feel free to write us on the chat where you're joining us from. This is the Sectors Meet the Donut webinar, a webinar on sector transformation. And we're going to hear from 3 initiatives. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I see people arriving slowly. Great. I see Casper also being here. Great. Happy to see different faces. Welcome, everyone. I'm waiting for 1 more minute before we start. This is a webinar on Sectors Meet the Donut, part of the Global Donut Days. Today is the online day with a lot of exciting sessions from all over the world. It's the first day of the Global Days Festival, and we are here. We're gonna speak about how the donut is already applied in different sectors, is applied as a tool to transform sectors. And I'm seeing people still joining. I guess I should start going. So I'll kick it off now, and people might drop in as we're moving. So hi, everyone, and officially welcome to this online webinar. We will be together for an hour. As you see, it's a webinar about sectors, and especially we're going to be looking at 3 initiatives that are using the donut model to transform the urban environment and the sectors that this involve. I'm Electra Columbi. I am a strategic consultant for post-growth economies, and I work with cities and organizations and sectors to help them implement economic models that help both people and planet to thrive. My work with the donut started some time ago in 2018, where we worked together with Kate Rayworth and the city of Amsterdam to implement the donut there and develop a circular economy strategy for the city and the first city donut. And since then, I have got the chance to work with different cities, but also organizations, bringing the thinking of donut economics into life. It's been the last months that I've been working and focusing more on sectors. I work together with the deal team to gather all the different initiatives that actually start bringing the donut to different sectors like health sector, sports sector, energy, water, food. We have here also construction and the built environment. A lot of different initiatives bring the donut to this interesting area that we call sectors. It's a system of systems. It includes businesses, policies that influence sector coming from governments, civil society that receives the services of sectors, and they have local impacts, but they also operate in global value chains. So there are a lot of layers to look at when we start working with sectors. And I had the chance to interview different initiatives from around the world, and some of them are here today. We we have brought initiatives that somehow all connect with the urban environment. So we're going to get the chance to hear some short presentations of the work they are doing in the first part. And in the second, let's say, second half part, more or less, of this webinar, we're going to have the chance to talk with them, ask questions. I'm going to be asking questions and also gather your questions. So please use the Q&A section of the webinar to bring the questions that you like to ask as you hear the initiatives, and I will gather them and try to summarize some key points to bring to them. Let me present to you the initiatives we have, and then we directly, start with the, this is it. We start with the presentations. We're going to hear from the Doughnut for Urban Development, a tool for real estate designers, architects, and general built environment experts to that guiding them to use the Doughnut Economics thinking when designing the buildings we live in. We're going to use from the Highways Doughnut toolkit. Is a recent tool for the first time, also actually presented today, that is using actually the Doughnut model to assess the social and ecological impact of highway projects and strategies. And the last one is the Material Doughnut, is a workshop tool developed also for built environment experts to guide them into making informed decisions about the impacts of materials used in construction used in construction and how to select them. So these are the initiatives, and here I show you quickly the speakers, and then I move to give the floor to them. We have Kasper Gudaher, the co-founder of Home Earth, speaking about the Doughnut for Urban Development, Christine Strandberg from Circle Economy, and unfortunately we don't have Matt. He's not feeling well, from the Cornwall Council. Together they worked on the Highways Doughnut Toolkit. And then we have Rebecca Cooper and Vincent McDonald from Aiken Network, who are going to present the Material Doughnut. And with this, I will give the floor to Kasper, who is going to be the first speaker presenting the Doughnut for Urban Development. Kasper, you have 10 minutes. You can take over the screen. And please, as I said to the audience, leave us your questions on the Q&A so that we can gather them for the second part of the webinar to share with the speakers. Kasper, the floor to you.
Thank you, Electra, and thank you, Deal, and the whole Doughnut team for this opportunity. I'm trying to share the screen now. I'm a Danish architect, and you can call me a sustainability pioneer. In all my kind of student life and adult life, I've been working towards trying to understand sustainability in architecture. And my presentation is how I have been co-authoring with a big team the Doughnut for Urban Development, how to practice a Doughnut in a specific sector, which is the building industry. This is kind of a landing, you can say, image of my current life. I like to say that I went from being a green architect to join the dark side of real estate development. So now I'm actually a real estate developer, but like operating with a good purpose of trying to achieve people and planet positive homes. This is a current development that I'm building, which will have the lowest climate impact in Denmark, and also a lot of social structures. So that's a bit about where I'm now. Let me see here. My, you can see, journey I was eye-opened by the Stockholm Resilience Center putting science to sustainability, talking about planetary boundaries, also what is being called absolute sustainability in Denmark, what is the limit that we can define with which within we need to operate. So that is how I see sustainability. I was really intrigued and also mind expanded by the Doughnut Economics book. I was also a bit puzzled, how do I practice this? And that's what I want to share today is this work we published last year, the Doughnut for Urban Development, which is a manual on how to practice Doughnut Economics for a specific sector. This work is a combination of both Stockholm Resilience Center and DEAL, the Doughnut Economic Actions Lab, but also a long line of great advisors and universities, landscape architects, etc., from the Danish, you can say, building industry. But this is a manual that is applied across many countries. We're also a big team of co-creators, and we were 2 co-editors. I have to give a big shout out to Danny that co-authored the book with me. Also, a learning was that we could do a lot of Teams meetings, but when we got together physically, it really meant a lot in the process of putting these you can say tools and principles forward. This is our London workshop. This is our Stockholm workshop. This is kind of the Copenhagen release party. The work we were focusing on was how to make the Doughnut for Urban Development, but being very true to, of course, the you can say like the Doughnut that is for all, and also how can we then say what is an defining the social foundation, what is ecological ceiling for construction, for developments. So in line with the work of DEAL, Kate and her team, we looked at this in 4 lenses. So that means that we both, of course, have the lens of the social and the planetary, but also the local and the global. So here you see on the left that we can have social concerns on site, affordable homes, inclusive neighborhoods, but also what is the social implications off-site in the, you can say like in the value chain and the indirect consequences of building. And the same goes with the climate and the biodiversity concerns. What happens on site, you need to measure and weigh in, but you also need to be aware of all the invincible implications that your construction has off-site. So just going into the kind of the actually 3 aspects of the book. One is a social foundation, the other one is a planetary ceiling, and then one that was a surprise to me was also a whole chapter on business design. So I'll do that in a few minutes. We made 96 tools, measurable tools, a matrix for both the social foundation and the planetary ceiling. And here you see that it's built around the same 9 focus areas of the Doughnut. So what do we do about inclusive housing? What do we do about health, social equity, etc.? And then it's exemplified in actually some measurable matrices of how to practice this. In the book, it also highlights examples from other realized buildings. 2 examples from each of the kind of wheels is here to focus on creating thriving social community. It's about having fair rental contract, affordable rent, no paywalls, also have residents on the board, give money back to residents, and also access to basic needs. Also, it's about extending social dignity across the global supply chain. So what happens not on site, but also throughout the supply chain is about fair contracts, workers' right, equal pay, safe working condition, and no forced or child labor. if we look at the ecological ceiling, in our work with Stockholm Resilience Center, I think we managed to do something quite complex, relatively simple, and it came to one of their recent scientific publication that actually documents that there are core Earth systems. So not just the 9 planetary boundaries as we know them, but there's actually two predominant ecosystems. That is, if you look at the top half of this wheel, is climate sustainability, and the top is about healthy ecosystem. So you really need to focus on climate and nature, and where the other planetary boundaries are more or less support boundaries to that. So within the ecological ceiling, again, 96 measurable exact tools and examples on how to apply the thinking to stay within the ceiling. Here you see that, again, just a spread from the book. We need obviously to build within the planetary boundary, so you need to use life cycle thinking and impact assessment, but also report transparency and stay within absolute budget for carbon and biodiversity. That is a new thing in Denmark and also across Europe, but we are starting to actually have full transparency on the impact of what we do. Also, focusing on nature and biodiversity, design like the wildlands next door, be inspired by nature and manage resource on site efficiently, and pollution avoidance, support local biodiversity, and also let wild nature be. Well, so when we look at this, what how do we operate like from like a global scale to a square meter? And that's what we need to do. So just this to the right says like, well, there's a global budget for CO2. We actually then can scale it down to a national budget. And then we can actually, within the national budget, you can say isolate a sector budget. And within that sector budget, we actually can focus on what is a square meter budget and also what is a per person allocation. And in the book, we put forward a new scientific allocation principles that were kind of the preferred by Kate and Deal. So it's called sufficiency. So for the nerds, there's some new science out there, but also for the practitioners, it's also put forward quite straight in the book, saying, well, if we need to get to the planetary boundary, we need to dramatically reduce our footprint. So this is a reduction roadmap to how to get there, and also take measurable steps towards it. I mean, in simple writing, we need to move to a tenth of the footprint of what we do today in current practice. Also, there are tools on how to talk about biodiversity net gain, like how can we enhance nature on site. And also there is a first tool on how to measure the off-site impact in nature through our material sourcing and our supply chain. So the last, sorry, this is fast, but I only have 10 minutes. The last focus is the business design. And that was really an eye-opener to me. I mean, you can talk about having a triple bottom line, you can talk about doing the right things, but if your current business only supports one bottom line, then it's actually impossible to achieve. So you really need to start challenging your surroundings. It can be through your personal financial actions or your pension fund, or the firm you work with. But what is the purpose of a business? What networks does it engage with? What governance does it operate within? How's the ownership and who's financing it? Like a super simple example is Airbnb, new business that's transforming hotel industry. It gives access to financial gains for many people instead of few people. It activates passive square meters into becoming more active. So there's an element of sharing. It also holds some serious challenges. Suddenly you see areas in cities where people can't afford to live there because Airbnb is driving up prices of living high because people start to use this as a way to increase personal income and keep people out of a residential market. So it suddenly becomes, you can say, like a solution that again caters for the few and not the many. Then a simple counter move is the Fair B&B, which is a community-powered tourism where a certain part of the revenue actually is reinvested in the local communities. So I'm just putting it up as an example on we need to be aware of which businesses we create, which businesses we support, and how we design not only construction, but also businesses in order to meet these kind of principles for the book, which is set absolute carbon budgets, set biodiversity targets, not just on-site, but also off-site, which is hard, but it's needed. We need to have transparent social impact, and also we need to redefine the purpose of business. You can download all of this. It says at the bottom of the page, home.earth/Doughnut. Home.earth is my company, and the slash is where we put all our knowledge on the Doughnut Economics. We have both the book, we have also an scientific appendix on several hundred pages for all the ones that need to know all the scientific references. Here is the database where you can actually just download and activate yourself. We also have the new tool on off-site biodiversity impact assessment. If you enter Gil's website, yeah.
Your time is up, but just please.
Good. This is
Yeah.
Gil's website here. You can download also a toolkit of how to practice it for developers. So my time is up, so I thank you and look forward to hear the other speakers.
This was great. Thank you so much. You did excellent. Keep sharing all this information fairly on time. So I'm sorry I had to interrupt because we had such a little time together. I give the floor quickly to Christine Strandberg. So Christine, please allow me to give you a sign when the time is finishing so that we have together more time to discuss in the end. The floor is yours. We can't hear you.
There we go. Yeah, there we
please.
go. Hi, everyone. What a challenge to do this in 10 minutes, but let's go. Gotta find my presenter. There we go. So hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Christine Strandberg. I work at Circle Economy, and I'm here today to present our Highway Doughnut Toolkit, which was developed in collaboration with Cornwall, Hampshire, and Somerset. So just very quickly about our organization, Circle Economy. It's a non-profit organization based in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and we help businesses and governments to accelerate the transition to a circular economy by delivering practical and scalable circular economy solutions. And let me just start very briefly by introducing the Wessex Live Lab that this amazing Doughnut Toolkit is part of. So quickly, the Highway Doughnut Toolkit is part of Live Labs 2, which is a 3-year, £30 million Department for Transportation funded project, which is managed by Adept, and it's running from 2023 to 2026. And Live Labs comprises of 7 projects in the UK across 4 interconnected themes, and they are all led by local authorities with commercial and academic partners. And this toolkit was developed within the Net Zero Roads Wessex Live Lab. We have a small part in the project, and our part is led by us from Circle Economy in collaboration with COLAS and the authorities of Cornwall, Hampshire, and Somerset. So let's just start quickly by introducing the Highway Doughnut development journey. So just introduce how we went about to develop this toolkit. The development journey took about 11 months. It was running from December 23, so last year, until last month, actually. So it's just finished, October 24. And phase 1 consisted of researching current practices, selecting the Doughnut themes that were relevant for the sector, and then validating them with the authorities. In phase 2, we then developed the practical application of these themes by setting up a toolkit logic and finally summarizing this into outputs which were a guidance manual, spreadsheet, and workshop canvases for practical application. And if we just go a little bit deeper into the adapting the Doughnut themes. So the connection between Doughnut Economics and highways might perhaps not seem obvious at first. But after a lot of research and discussion with the highways experts in the authorities, we started realizing that there are actually quite a lot of aspects from highways that are relevant for both the social and ecological lenses of the Doughnut. So for example, how might we ensure that roads are accessible to everyone, supporting all different ages and the differing abilities of people? How might we involve the community, ensuring fair representation in decisions? Respect cultural heritage, preventing visual and auditory impacts. Here, as an example, we have a Stonehenge, which was squeezed in between two big roads. How might we also prioritize worker safety, given the risks of highway maintenance? And how might we encourage low emissions transport through thoughtful design and materials? And then on the ecological side, how might we protect biodiversity with safe wildlife crossings, minimize mining of materials such as bitumen, part of asphalt, and how might we phase out hazardous substances, manage CO2 emissions, and promote circular waste practices from the demolition of roads? So with the selected themes, the Highway Doughnut was born, with adjusted language to align with the highway sector priorities, but also merging some of the original themes and removing some of the others. This clarified what we wanted to evaluate within the sector, setting the stage to explore how they should be assessed and integrate into the processes of our three authorities. So if we move ahead with the toolkit logic, so to determine how we best should evaluate the defined themes, we use the Unrolled Doughnut framework, applying the 4 lenses methodology to explore both the local and global aspects of each of our defined themes. Through this exercise, it became clear that global impacts were mainly narrowed down to supply chain operations and conditions, which are, of course, primarily influenced at the strategic level. So as a result, we then structured our toolkit into 2 level tools, which were the strategic and project level tool. So the strategic level tool, it evaluates the county-wide strategies and plans in place to balance the social and ecological considerations of the highway sector. And then the project tool evaluates the implementation of these strategic directions at the project level for planned maintenance, cyclic work, and reactive work, which are the 3 main categories of maintenance work. And even though they operate as separate tools, so the evaluation from each of these levels should inform and reinforce the other, of course, to create a more cohesive approach. And then part of the Highway Doughnut toolkit logic, we also developed what we call the Doughnut state. So these are the desirable direction for each of these themes that we developed. And each Doughnut state then drives the strategic and project evaluation towards that ideal future. Here we see an example from accessibility, which is the delivery of highway maintenance service enables road networks to be accessible and usable by all intended users, considering their diverse capabilities and needs. So let's dig a little bit deeper into the strategy level tool. The strategy tool serves as a guidance for high-level planning and shaping a long-term vision for highway maintenance. It's designed to support local governments in aligning their strategic directions with the Doughnut state across all of these themes, ensuring that the big picture goals balance these social and ecological needs. And the tool was primarily applied in major, or should be primarily applied in major transport-related documents, such as the local transportation plan, but also the asset management plan. But also other supporting and enabling documents, such as the biodiversity plan, for example, and procurement guidelines should be included in the evaluation to ensure that alignment with these different plans, but also effective implementation through, for example, the procurement guidelines. And the strategic tool can be used in 2 different ways. It can either evaluate existing strategic documents to assess progress, identify gaps, and adjust plans to meet the Doughnut state for each theme. It can also be used to shape new strategic documents proactively from the outset. And this can be done by embedding Doughnut Economics principles early on. Counties can then build new strategies that are structured to meet the Doughnut state goals for each of these themes. And the strategy tool is structured around 2 key sections. We evaluate the ambition, which is evaluating the authority's current targets and associated monitoring framework to track the progress. And we also evaluate how that trickles to implementation, which is the operational alignment with these targets that we have identified in the ambition part, and then risk mitigation for each of these themes. And each question is scored from a score between 1 to 5, where a score of 1 indicates poor performance towards the ideal state, while a score of 5 signifies full alignment with the desired donut state. Moving ahead to the project tool. The project tool, it serves multiple purposes. It enables highway authorities to incorporate the donut themes across the entire life cycle of maintenance projects, from planning to design and then to implementation and monitoring. And for asset managers, the tool can offer a clear and structured approach to evaluate and balance both the social and ecological impact within each project of the local authority, ensuring a more streamlined approach that you evaluate the same thing across all of your projects. The project tool also bridges the gap between high-level strategy goals and on-the-ground action, transforming strategic directions into concrete, measurable outcomes. And the tool, as I mentioned previously, has been designed to integrate seamlessly within the existing activities in highway maintenance. So it can be applied to planned maintenance, which includes the more large-scale activities like resurfacing, addressing drainage issues, and implementing improvements for road safety, for example. It can also be applied to reactive maintenance, which is more response to issues that are identified through regular inspections or public reports. Which can be, for example, repairing potholes or replacing damaged signs. And then finally, it can be used for cyclic work, which consists of scheduled routine activities, which is carried out on a regular cycle. So this includes, for example, vegetation management and gully cleansing, for example. And the project tool is designed to support detailed on-the-ground assessment. So each theme is broken down into specific questions that translate these broader goal, which is the donut state, into more actionable consideration for implementation. And this helps clarify how each topic should be applied at the project level. We also have tailored scoring criteria, which outline what's required to achieve for each of these scores, from 1 to 5 for each theme. And this allows for a more precise and streamlined evaluation of project performance across social and ecological aspects, so that all projects evaluate based on the same criteria. And now let's just quickly.
You have a
1
few
minute?
seconds.
All right, I will go through it very quickly. So this is how it looks like. We have targets and monitoring framework consisting of the ambition. So for example, here we scored the target as a 5 because we have a net zero by 2050. We then have a monitoring framework. We scored this as a 4 because we have regular reporting, we have external auditing of the results. And how does this then systematically is implemented across the authorities? How can we make sure that the net zero target is actually implemented on the ground? And we have the processes and procedures available to meet that goal. So here we have a net zero procurement processes, for example, but we also include carbon budgets that should be incorporated into every single project. But how about risk mitigation? Well, here we see that, for example, in this mock-up, we score it as a 2 because we have a very basic risk assessment conducted within the authority. And then for the project, here we have 2 questions, which is the operational carbon emissions on site. We scored this as for this project, for example, we have a resurfacing. So a large part of a highway that is, the surface is so badly currently, so we need to change the whole surface. So we see here that in this example, diesel machinery is still in use, which is emitting a lot of CO2 emissions, of course, but we have an optimized scheduling. So we combine different projects together, which gives it a 2. We have some minor improvements, but not that well advanced. However, about the embodied carbon emissions in materials, we see that in this example, we use recycled asphalt. So here we stay within the carbon budget, we reuse the materials that are already there, but by the use of this diesel machinery that breaks up the surface and puts it back on. So we give it a 5 for the carbon emissions, but a 2 on the machineries used. And then we have another question on the inspection, but for this instance, it's not applicable because this is a planned maintenance project, so we don't answer that question. And then we have one more question, which is the climate adaptation, which is missing from this site. So you see here that we have a weighting as well, which indicates that you can set some of the questions as more important than others. But for our mock-up, we have just put them as equal. So we have 4 questions and 25% each. And that's a very quick run through of how this can be applied. And that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Interesting. So much food for thought, so much information. Thank you for sharing the tool. And I will quickly then give the floor to Rebecca and Vincent for another presentation of their project on the Material Doughnut. Guys, the floor is yours, and I will keep the time so we all come back again when you're done.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you for having us here today. It's really exciting to hear about the other initiatives as well. I'm Rebecca, and I've got Vincent here with me as well. And we are the co-coordinators of the ACAN Climate Literacy Group. And ACAN, for people that aren't familiar with us, is the Architects Climate Action Network. These are our 3 main aims. They are decarbonise now, ecological regeneration, and cultural transformation. And in the Climate Literacy Group, we are really focusing on this cultural transformation element at the moment, and hopefully that will be reflected in what we present to you today, which is the Material Doughnut, which is a workshop that we've been developing over the last couple of years that Vincent will now introduce to you.
So yeah, how did the Materials Doughnut come about? We were invited to speak and program a series of events on behalf of ACAN at Future Build, which is a built environment conference based in London. It's a massive conference with a range of different speakers programmed and materials that are presented there, primarily quite a few commercial interests. So it was interesting being there on behalf of a climate action organisation. And our series of talks were primarily based around ACAN's 3 main aims, as Rebecca just introduced, which was ecological regeneration, cultural transformation, and decarbonise now, looking at hidden impacts of materials, for example, the sand crisis. We're looking about wool farming for insulation here in the UK, and also things like peatland regeneration, which is producing a lot of natural materials that are very regenerative. And then weaved between those was some more systemic issues like housing shortages. But from that, we wanted to integrate a workshop in there. As Rebecca was saying, we're focusing on cultural transformation as part of the Climate Literacy Group. So we wanted to have a workshop that would develop soft skills and sort of challenge a lot of the professionals that were there, for example, architects like ourselves, on their material specification and what questions they do ask. And so we wanted to find a framework that would both sort of challenge, but then also ask more questions about social impacts and ecological impacts. And Doughnut Economics looks like the best framework for us to look at that.
So I'll just talk you through the structure of the workshop now. So the first activity that we do is we'll take a particular material and we try and get different groups in the workshop to have a look at quite contrasting materials. So we might have a look at concrete and we might have a look at timber, 2 structural materials, and have a go at mapping them out. And the first activity is to look at the whole life cycle of those materials. So we start thinking about, okay, how are these materials grown or extracted? How are they manufactured and produced? What happens to them when they're on site? How are they going into our buildings or our projects? What happens to them throughout their life as that building or that space? What maintenance is required? And then what happens to them at the end of their life as well? And as part of the workshop, we try and bring in EPDs as a source of data so that professionals can start to understand how to read and dissect these quite dense documents. And they form quite a useful source of information for that beginning part of the workshop. But then what we really get stuck into is the next exercise, looking at mapping each of those materials' life cycles onto the 4 lenses of Doughnut Economics. So the ecological, social, global, and local lenses. So once we've got a bit of a grasp of what the life cycle of the material is, we can start to really interrogate that a bit further to think about, okay, well, ecologically on a global scale, what do we know about this? And it starts to raise some really interesting conversations in the group as people start to think, oh, well, it's having this impact here, but I hadn't really thought about the impact that it was having in this space. So using this unrolled donut and the 4 lenses as a tool to explore that is really useful. And what it also allows us to do is, to really ask questions that aren't necessarily covered as part of EPDs or other sort of general knowledge and data that built environment professionals have about where their materials might be coming from and the supply chain. So an example here is if we're looking at concrete or glass, there's lots of sand extraction associated with both of those materials. Professionals might not necessarily be interrogating when they're specifying them. We have to think about what is happening at a global scale for us, but a local scale for the people that are extracting the sand or the area that it's being extracted from, and what are the social impacts of that as well, and who might we be affecting by using those materials. And then the final exercise is we take all that information that we've pulled together on the life cycle and the mapping over the 4 lenses, and we attempt to map each of the materials onto the donut itself. So we've got this template here that's quite familiar to the global scale donut, with the ecological ceiling and the social foundation there with the safe and just space there. And we really use the template as a tool to compare those different materials against each other and start to think about, okay, well, what does this material look like on the donut? Is it breaching any planetary boundaries? Is it causing any kind of social deprivation by us using it? And as I said, we try and get those sort of contrasting materials there so we can look at what does concrete look like versus what does timber look like, and really start to build a picture. And people can use this as a really like a useful tool for developing critical thinking on those kind of specifications. And here's an example here of one that's been filled out as a bit of a sort of template and guide for anyone partaking in the workshop. So this one's for glass. And as you start to see, there are some areas where we've suggested that it is sort of causing some breaching of planetary boundaries and also social shortfalls. But to have it as a visual tool is really impactful, I think.
So some of the lessons learned from us as we've been reflecting on the workshops that we've run so far, I think one of the key ones being that systems is hardly ever discussed in a materials in material sphere, in material specification, and that for a lot of people these felt like new concepts. Especially the links, drawing the links between different impacts felt like new concepts, which was a bit of an insight for us really. And I think the difficulties that some people had when doing the workshops was it was hard to place a sort of data-driven value on some of those social impacts, but even some of the environmental ones as well. And I think the use of EPDs, sometimes felt a bit cold in some circumstances. They're so data driven that that there's a whole sort of other realm that feels completely lost, and that they seem quite detracted from the impacts that they might actually have, and also quite easy to sort of skew and make you think that they're actually performing really well when in fact it might be the complete opposite. But I think in a positive light, we're the energy and will of people to get involved with workshops like this, I think just goes further to demonstrate that technical knowledge is absolutely not a barrier to getting involved in climate action, and anyone can get involved in these workshops.
We've also been
Hey,
Is that our warning?
your time is almost is finished, so please, Claudia.
Okay, cool. We'll summarize. Vincent, do you want to skip forward to the next slide? Just one interesting point to kind of finalize with is we did one particular workshop at an event that was wholly based on the specification of natural materials, and this was a really useful moment to kind of understand how intricately the donut allows you to start dissecting materials, because we were thinking, well, these are all going to look quite good on the donut because they're all natural, they're all bioregional. But actually, it got down to the finite level of detail where we were saying, oh, well, when we're installing straw on site, it can be quite an irritant and quite scratchy. So we need to bear that in mind for the people that are going to be constructing the building. So being able to see things in that kind of level of detail, the donut really unlocked that for us.
I think, yeah, just to summarize quickly on the slide before, you had the materials primer book, which is by Hattie Hartman and Joe Jack Williams. That's where this has been published so far. We're trying to, in the next phase of this project, create a more open source downloadable version of this so you can self-facilitate it yourselves. And then another stream that we're looking at is how we can scale this up as some materials are sort of blurring into one another, and whether we can look more at the relationships between land and people, and how the materials come from that to sort of prioritize a new material economy. Thank you.
Thank you everyone. That has been great to hear all of you. Very dense and so many things to really reflect on. I will invite all of us now to have a quick discussion. We don't have so much time, so let's try to be brief in our answers. I will throw some questions and please let me know who wants to answer, but they will be for all of you. We have also some questions coming from the audience. We'll combine. So let's start with this one first, and let's be quick if we can summarize. What are the benefits of working with the donut? If you had to convince someone in the sector to apply this approach, let's start with the positive aspect. What are the good thing? What is the value? What have you learned? Who wants to start? And let's be brief if you can summarize. Casper, you gonna go?
Yeah, no, I think the donut offers, you can say, like a balanced approach, because you can get a tunnel vision on carbon, and you forget about the social impact of architecture and development. So I think the donut always balances, you can say, like planetary and a social concern. And then I think working with it at a sector, it makes it very specific. And also having to stay within the planetary boundaries is it also shows how far there is actually. So it's first it's a shock, and then it's a positive driver, and also in talking to municipalities on actually trying to, in collaboration, to get within the planetary boundary. So that's like a priceless, you can say, like gift that we can talk about it specifically any collaboration.
Yeah, so it unveils the actual impacts that are huge. It asks you to balance and move away from more tunneled way of thinking, only on focusing on emissions, on carbon, and it opens up the question. Anyone else wants to add something different on that, Christine?
Yeah, I think it's a great tool to kind of show the complexity of a sector. It's not just one side. We have multiple sides that we always need to balance. And this shows kind of that multitude of the impacts that our sectors have. And also just to quickly connect it to Ed's question in the chat, which is how this can be used for greenwashing. I mean, it's a way to show the impact. So it will actually show how good you're actually doing. How much CO2 emissions do you actually emit by building this new road or changing the way that you manage the roads. So I think it's a way to kind of bring that to light. So it's not a way of greenwashing, it's rather this is how it looks. and that can be very negative, and then it brings that to light. It's not only about kind of, and you can balance these different aspects of the road network, because it's not just negative. You look at the CO2 emissions, but it also connects people. It brings people to jobs, to culture, to each other. So, you know, there are these multiple sides of road networks that this tool really brings to light. And I think that's what makes it really interesting.
Thank you, Christine. I'm going to just add, because you brought it up, there was the question on the chat about, greenwashing, but more like, okay, on the construction sector, when we really talk about Doughnut, if we take it fully seriously, that might mean we don't need to build more, or we need to degrow. Did you meet any challenges like this, or did you have any difficult conversations like this where you realized that actually, if you want to follow fully the Doughnut thinking, in certain cases, you would need to not even proceed with the project? Has any one of you encountered such a controversial discussion? Yes, Casper.
Yes, it's tough to get the truth, because you can say today in Denmark, with the building legislation, you are allowed to build what is equivalent to 12 planets. So we are in an over-consuming, you can say, world. And how do we then stay within the planetary boundary? And in my presentation, I also showed a roadmap, because there aren't the tools and the materials or the technology available to meet one planet today. I also think we need to act. We can't just say we don't do nothing. So we are transforming, and we are like challenging on energy, on materials, on square meters, on resource use, focusing on like nature positive, people positive. So I think the truth is scary, but it's also a driver. And also I agree with the concern. I mean, it can't be about cherry picking. Whoa, we have straw here. We don't talk about all the concrete we have here. You know, like so. I like the transparency, that you have some very ambitious goals that you deal with in a transparent way and in a collaborative way, but also in a step-by-step way, because otherwise we will be shocked to do nothing, and we need to do a lot of things.
I hear you. I hear what you're sharing about bringing it all transparently up, and obviously there are critical decisions that need to be made thereafter. Let's go to one or two more questions quickly. We see like your processes and also the indicators you're developing. This can be often a laborious work, especially when we need also to bring the global impacts of the sector and analyze those. What are the challenges that you see when working with a model, and which tips would you give to others to help them overcome them, or to encourage them to start working with it? It's two questions in one because of the time. Vincent, you want to go?
Can I come in? Yeah, I think for us, one of the key challenges is on climate literacy and ensuring that there is that baseline of knowledge that there is to work from. And I think, you know, jumping back to your first question as well, that's where Doughnut Economics really does come into on so many levels, because it does allow for that intuition, and it allows for people to have that imagination about how these systems are interlinked. I think with the architecture section and the built environment, that has sort of slightly gone to the wayside a little bit. I think with Casper talking about the regulation side of it, it's obviously there is that data driven, but there's also that need for imagination and that need for you know, new thinking, and that's where the Doughnut framework really comes into its own.
Someone else wants to share anything on the challenges on the practical level, Casper?
Yeah, I just like also would like to end on a, like I think what I see is when people engage with the donut thinking and the donut practice, that I think the donut offers a certain like a power, superpower. It is in the collaboration and in the reimagination that when you actually start to unfold this and like explore these challenges together. Um, I think there's a lot of power in that. So I also see that across the presentations today. So I mean, for my sake, the Donut for Urban Development offers a framework and an approach, but it needs people to engage in it, and it also invites for collaboration. So I think that is I think that gives me some hope because in my practice I'm engaging also like hardcore financial people and also stubborn municipalities and like stupid regulation, but we can get together around the donut as a way to approach it and to be open about the ecological and the social balance, and also within that talk about business. So I think the donut really is a power tool and also an eye opener to many. And through collaboration, I see things are not impossible.
Mm-hmm. I hear what you both are bringing, and I resonate a lot with my experience of somehow I like the words of Casper. It brings a superpower, a collective superpower of it's a literacy, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of sitting around and having these discussions. Is there a question any of you want to ask the other, or something that comes to your mind? Otherwise, I can move to another one. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to ask or comment something. You good? All right, we have 2 more minutes. Yes, Sheila is bringing a comment about the potential of exploring connection across sectoral projects. Definitely, I mean, here we have also 3 projects that are quite sister projects in the way that they are trying to approach similar actors and the urban environment from different entry points. Maybe just a tip for how to move forward. What would be a good next step for any of you? Would you like to comment on that? What would be helpful?
I think if I can connect also with some questions that we've had in the Q&A, I think a tip is have time. So you need a lot of time. You need to get together and you need time to think and brainstorm. This is not a thing that comes up from one day to the other. You need some time to critically think, to brainstorm, to revise, to go back and forth. And that is really when you put your mind into it in that long run, that's when everything starts coming together. So I think you need time and you need to come together, both online and physically. Physically is very important to collaborate effectively. And I think those are the 2 key opportunities to make this work in the long run from my side.
I would just
Thank
like to
you.
add ambition and transparency to that. But I totally agree. But the donut is almost like a philosophy, like a perfect balance. So we need to be ambitious when it meets reality, and we need to have transparency with what we do, so we just don't like work in one area of the donut and like have blind angles. So
Thank you. Thank you all. I keep the words of the donut as a philosophy. We need the time. It's a revolutionary act, actually, but to balance and create this imagination and space for people to think along and together. Thank you. It was great to hear from all of you. Amazing new projects. I hope to see them more being applied and see them developing further. And hopefully we will also soon hear from more sectoral initiatives. The report that DL is creating right now, the first guide on sectors and how to apply the donut there. Hopefully will come out soon. So I thank you all so much. It was just such a pleasure. I hope we had a lot more time to discuss, but thank you all, and we will be in touch. Thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.